Hello, and welcome to episode 288 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Today on the show, we talked about so many things. Where did we
All
start?
kinds
Oh,
of
we
stuff.
started with
Yeah.
a logical reasoning question and assumptions there. Then we jumped into a pearls versus turds from our listener, Rebecca. And that was about process versus like goals and end results and so
Yeah, we had
forth.
an excuse of the week about reading out loud. We took a quick
Mhm.
look at our hilarious Apple Podcasts reviews.
And we dug into Nathan's inner child. That was nice.
And then we had a whole raft of mailbag questions. I don't know that we need to summarize those, but we had, 5 or 6 different listener emails that we
Yeah,
tackled on
people
a variety
who
of
trying to
topics.
decide whether to go to law school, whether they can get this accommodations in law school, and someone who applied late and wondering whether they should accept an acceptance now for next year.
We
Anyways,
also talked about Georgetown's predatory spam,
oh
asking
yeah,
for people to apply late with a GRE score. We had a little bit of information that came in from a listener on that, so
yep.
that was cool.
Yeah, so this will air on the Ides of March, Monday, March 15th. You can't apply for the April LSAT at this point, but that will be on April 10th. And the June registration deadline, that's one thing you should keep in mind. That's the end of April, April 30th for the June LSAT, which will start June 12th. All right, let's jump into this logical reasoning question. This is test 65, section 4, question 23. Domesticated wolves is apparently the title of this one. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, a biologist says researchers believe that dogs are the descendants of domesticated wolves that were bred to be better companions for humans. It has recently been found that some breeds of dog are much more closely related genetically to wolves than to most other breeds of dog. Interesting. This shows that some dogs are descended from wolves that were domesticated much more recently than others.
Whoa. Okay. New idea there.
Yeah, and that's their conclusion. And you're not allowed to bring up new shit in your conclusion. You know, one red flag on LSAT logical reasoning, whenever they say this shows,
Yep.
what they mean is this proves. And my response is always, no, it doesn't. It just doesn't. I'm willing to give you all your facts, but I'm not going to give you that last conclusion. So my objection here is simply because these dogs are more closely related to wolves than they are to other dogs does not mean that they have to have been domesticated more recently. Why can't they be super closely related to wolves, but they were domesticated first? Like, what does domestication have to do with
Time.
how closely you are genetically related?
Yeah. Like the assumption here is that once you were domesticated, then you continued to evolve or something, I guess, or like genetically change, right? Like somehow that's
Which, because of animal husbandry, because we know that we like purposely choose dogs to be different, have different characteristics, then I mean, I guess kind of like my outside knowledge says, well, I mean, probably, but probably isn't good enough on the
and
LSAT.
it's
Probably
just it's a week probably, right? I don't even know if you can go that far. It's like
right,
maybe
right,
because right, like cockroaches or something, haven't they like not evolved hardly at all
yeah.
for the last
Well, yeah.
million, trillion, billion years?
Not only that, but what if I want my dog to be a fucking wolf?
And you keep it that way. Yep.
Yeah,
And you
like what if I
favor, yep.
purposely breed my dogs with wolves to try to get them as much like wolves as I can?
Yeah.
It could be the reason why it's the most like a wolf is because I like wolves and I
Yep.
domesticated, or my great great grandfather domesticated this wolf and then just like kept it as a wolf, basically kept breeding it with wolves, and that's his dog, but it's
Yeah.
like super wolf like because he wants it to be that way.
Yeah.
And that's the biologist seems to be assuming that's not the case with this particular breed of dog.
Yep. Like the more closely genetically related you are to a wolf, the more recently you must have come away from that wolf. Something
Right.
like that.
But that's an assumption of the
It's
argument.
an
That's an
assumption. Yep.
unstated premise of the argument, and that's the weakness of the biologist's argument. If we were 2L or 3L legal writing TAs, and this was our 1L student with their brief, we would be like, hey, you need to make explicit the piece where if you are more closely related genetically, then that means that you must have been domesticated more recently.
Yep.
You leapt to that conclusion without stating it explicitly as a premise of your argument.
Yeah.
Which one of the following principles underlies the biologist's argument? What type of question do you think that is? It's not a principle question because there ain't no such thing.
No, actually, so this is kind of like a strengthen question slash assumption question, because if something is underlying the argument, then it's something that is supporting it and is assumed, essentially, right?
I would call it a necessary assumption question or even a must be true question.
Oh, so
I
why would
mean,
you say necessary
because
assumption? Just because I'm worried
because
about the strength of that, right?
because underlies
Means necessarily.
means this is part of the argument.
Okay. I'm cool with
Right?
that.
It doesn't say which one of the following, if true, it doesn't say which of the following principles, if true or if assumed, would help or justify or strengthen or what. It doesn't say that. So I can't really put it on a strengthen question. It just really seems to me like it's a necessary assumption or a must be true. It's like which one of these does the argument rely on?
Yeah.
Right? Which one of these underlies the argument? It underlies, means like it's a foundation.
Yep.
It's like a critical piece of the puzzle here. A says if one breed of dog is descended from wolves that were domesticated more recently than were the wolves from which most other breeds of dog are descended. I really don't need to read the rest of that, do I?
Yeah.
Because it's conditional on the conclusion of the argument.
Yeah.
It's
That's
like if we
backwards.
assume that the dog is descended more recently, then the
Yep.
former breed may be more closely related to wolves than those other breeds are. It's all the right words, but they're arranged in the wrong order.
Yep.
It's like what that does is it says if you already know that the dog is domesticated more recently, then it will be more closely related. No, we want if it's more closely related, then it has to be descended more recently. Yeah.
Yep.
B
Confusing.
says,
Sufficient for necessary.
yeah, B says if one breed of dog is more closely related to wolves than to another breed of dog, then the former breed of dog has more recent undomesticated wolf ancestors than the latter breed has.
What do you think?
I like it. I mean, it seems to be the reverse of what A said, right? We thought A was backward, confusing sufficient for necessary.
Mm-hmm.
B looks like it puts the elements in the right order. The missing, and they did like obfuscate it here a little bit with the former breed of dog has more recent undomesticated wolf ancestors. They could
Mm,
have just said the former breed of dog was domesticated more recently, but they
yeah,
did that on
but
purpose.
yeah,
That's lawyer shit. That's what they're testing.
they're saying the same thing with different words so that people run away. But
Right. But savvy LSAT students will remember that there is one correct answer that makes perfect sense. And so we're going to be super critical of the wrong answers, but the one answer that we pick, we're going to understand how it answers the question perfectly. Even if it's worded in a shitty way, we're going to grind through it to simplify it down, basically. I mean, if you translate B, it says If you're more closely related to wolves, then you are more recently domesticated.
Yeah.
That's what it means in a worse way,
Yeah.
but it's still going to be the correct answer here. C says any breed of dog descended from wolves that were domesticated is more
Okay.
closely related genetically to at least some other breeds of dog than to wolves.
This doesn't even have to be true, but um
It's to me, it's just nonsense, to be honest. I mean,
yeah.
in real life, if I was sitting there doing a 35-minute time section, I would give that answer no attention whatsoever. I mean, I read it in 3 seconds. I don't understand it. I do understand B. In an LSAT class, I might take 5 minutes to explain exactly why C is wrong. Like, well, here's what I think it means, and here's what the argument would have to have said in order to make that right. But when I'm actually doing the test, I read that and I go, that doesn't make sense. And I don't pick answers that don't make sense. Next.
Yeah. And if all five don't make sense, then fine. You got to double down and figure it out.
And I'm
But
totally comfortable with that too. On some of the
yeah.
questions, I'm going to have to dig in for 3 or 4 minutes and like really, really analyze each answer very carefully. But on the
Yeah.
majority of questions, the right answer is going to jump out to me, like B did here. And the
Yeah.
wrong answers are going to just be either obviously wrong or they're not going to make sense.
Yep.
And I have no patience for answers that don't make sense because 4 out of 5 answers on the LSAT are wrong. And I just expect answers to be bullshit. D says, if one breed of dog is more closely related to wolves than another breed of dog is, now the first half of that makes sense so far, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's
like,
good.
okay, you're on target.
Yep. That
Then the
they're
former
closely
breed
related.
of dog is more closely related to wolves than to the latter breed of dog.
Okay. First of all,
Oh,
it
that's
doesn't
also, it
even
doesn't, yeah,
talk
that
about the
doesn't make sense.
time, right? So it's out, but it's also like if I do follow it, not that we need to, right? Actually, I would just end it here because of the time. It doesn't talk about the time. And so I don't.
Yeah, but also just because you're the breed of dog that's most closely related to wolves, you could still be more closely related to the second
Yeah.
closest breed of
You're two
dog,
degrees away from wolves, but you're only 1 degree away from another dog.
but
So
you're
what?
still the breed of dog that's most closely related to
Yeah.
wolves. So D just doesn't have to be true. I mean, I'm treating this as a necessary assumption question, and the author does not have to agree with that. E says any two breeds of dog that are more closely related to each other than to wolves, which wasn't even contemplated in the facts. I mean, that's just not part of the argument at all. Two breeds of dog that are closely related to each other. That's not what the biologist was even talking about.
Nope. Talking
So
about
we don't,
dogs related to wolves, but anyways, yeah.
it's so, well, so it's so far off that I don't need to read the rest of E. I've
Yeah.
already found an answer that I really like. We predicted it, in fewer words. We predicted something simpler than B, but B means the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I either know that A, C, D, and E, I either know that they're objectively wrong, like A, because it's confusing sufficient for necessary, or I just don't even understand what they say. And that's fine because I do understand how B is a perfect answer. I've looked at all 5 answers. None of them are going to compete with B. So the answer is B.
I do feel like that most people who don't pick B struggle with the phrase that you talked about, which is the more recent undomesticated wolf ancestors. If you have more recent undomesticated wolf ancestors, then that means that the transition from wolf to dog took place more recently. Right?
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
All
So the
right.
next one, pearls versus turds. So here's where we take some wisdom from the internet or somewhere out in the ether and decide whether this wisdom or this advice is actually wise, actually a pearl, or as most of them have turned out to be, a piece of shit. And if it is, then we don't want you following this shitty advice. This submission was from listener Rebecca. I guess I'll read it. So
Yep.
she's screenshotting. Was this a Twitter
Yep.
tweet
It's from
from
Twitter. Yes.
Justin Sua? Who's that? Do you know that
I
person?
have no idea who this,
Okay,
it's a
Justin
random
Sua.
Twitter person. Yeah.
Justin Sua, who is a verified Twitter, has a verified Twitter account,
Oh
by the way,
yeah.
says,
Check mark.
part of embracing the process is understanding that no matter how focused you are or how hard you work, you can't force how fast the results come. Manage your emotions as things unfold. When results aren't lining up with your expectations, keep focusing on what you can control. Okay. So Rebecca wants to know, is this good advice?
I think it's great advice. I I can't tell you how many students ask me, like for specific timelines on how fast their score is going to improve, or students get upset because they've been working hard and then on their practice test last Saturday they scored 2 points lower than their previous test and they think everything's going to shit. And I always tell them, it's like, I'm sorry that the results weren't what you wanted them to be this time. But the only thing I care about at all is, let's look at your individual mistakes and figure out how to avoid making those individual mistakes next time. And that's controlling the process. The process, the whole purpose, I wrote a newsletter about this a couple of weeks ago, but the whole purpose of doing timed practice and scored practice tests is simply to get most of them right, but make a few mistakes. And the very few mistakes that you make are precious opportunities to learn. You learn as much as you can from those mistakes and you keep moving.
Yeah.
You can't force that progress. You can
can't
you can
force that
control your
progress.
actions in this moment. That's all you can do.
Yep. Focus on what you're doing and how to do it better. Don't focus on the results. In fact, usually what happens, right? And this is the advice we give over and over again. Someone's taking a test, they're focusing on the outcome, they're focusing on that perfect score, getting a 180 or whatever. And by like almost aiming toward that, they end up missing the steps that they need to take now. It's like it forces you to gloss over it. You know that there's this quote that's always stuck with me. It's and I'm totally going to mess it up, but it's from one of those Abraham Lincoln movies, and it's the one that came out like 5 years ago or something. But anyways, someone was criticizing Lincoln, right? And he was saying, "I don't understand why you don't try to abolish slavery more quickly. Like, what's your
Mm,
problem? Like you agree, we all agree in this room that it's a bad thing and we need to get rid of it. You're being too sympathetic to the South or something like that, right? I don't
mm-hmm.
remember the words, but and I don't know if this is just a cinematic moment or if this is something that Lincoln actually said, but he's like, yeah, we all see like the mountain that we want to get to, but you're not seeing the valleys and the like the terrain that we have to traverse to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just like aim towards that mountain and like start running towards it, you're going to trip and fall on your face and fuck it all up. You got to bring everybody along. And the way to do that is to like deal with the next mountain right in front of you. And that's what's happening on the LSAT. You can't be like, oh, I got to get a 170 and I'm just going to like, I don't know, spasm. You just have to focus on the question or the sentence that you're on. Yeah. So this is a pearl.
Yep, I'm willing to give it a pearl. If you have a pearl versus turd candidate, you can email help@thinkinglsat.com and we will get you on the agenda. You can also talk to us on social, including Twitter @thinkinglsat. We're not super active on Twitter, but we are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere @thinkinglsat. Or yeah, again, email help@thinkinglsat.com, and you will find your Pearl versus Turd candidate on a future show.
Cool. Thanks, Rebecca.
Yep. Thanks, Rebecca. That was our 13th Pearl against 42 turds and 22 ties. Excuse of the week
Awesome.
time.
Yeah.
This was, again, one of our teachers at LSAT Demon has a tutoring student who has complained that I wish I could read it out loud. What do you think of that? Is that a valid excuse, or do you think that that's an excuse that's hindering this LSAT student?
Yeah, I don't know really what to make of it. I mean, you can wish for things and not still charge ahead. Is this person actually like complaining?
I think that most excuses are damaging to the student. I think that students come up with lots of reasons for not understanding, and they come up with lots of reasons for not being careful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of our job is to just kind of redirect people when they are using excuses that are irrelevant and or nothing you can't do anything about it. And it's just like, I feel like it's a waste of time, it's a waste of energy. And it's like, people do that thing where they give themselves permission to like not get it. You are not allowed to read out loud on the LSAT. I mean, but you're not allowed to read out loud during your law school exams either. And you're not allowed to read out loud, I don't think, from counsel's table in court. I mean, what if there's a document that gets disclosed to you in the courtroom? I'm not sure how often that actually happens, but I imagine it happens sometimes. Or what if you have to go back and reread some document in your copious files that you have, and you have to reread that quickly sitting there in the actual courtroom or in a meeting? Probably more likely you're in a meeting.
Yeah.
With clients or with opposing counsel or with a judge or with whoever. You're in a meeting, a professional meeting, and you have a document that you need to figure out what the fuck it says quickly. You're not going to be sitting there reading that out loud.
I mean, you can't do it. So you're saying this person is making an excuse for their inability to understand something by saying, well, I can't understand it because I can't read out loud, but if I could, then I would understand it.
Right. And I don't
just focus on trying to learn how to understand it.
One, you're going to have to get over it. So why are you complaining about shit you can't do anything about? I mean, I wish I was taller, Ben. I wish I didn't start losing my hair in my 30s.
Wait, what?
What good does that what good does that do for anybody? It's like, yeah, you need to move on with life. It's a thing that we hear a lot in our classes, where people chime in and somebody says it and then 5 other students chime in, oh, me too, me too. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't think you're doing yourself any favors there, because it is something that if you're going to be successful in the legal world, you're going to have to learn how to read documents without reading them out loud. Also, I submit that it doesn't help you anyway. When I read out loud, I mean, I read out loud more than most common folk do, because I teach LSAT classes where I have to read out loud. It takes vastly longer to read out loud than it does to read silently. You're doing a physical activity with your mouth and your vocal cords that you wouldn't be doing otherwise. It's extra work to read it out loud, and it takes longer. And sometimes you're so focused on getting the words out of your mouth that it like interferes with your understanding of those words.
Yeah, I think people like this because a lot of people have learned like to read that way maybe. And I'm wondering like why does this persist or why do they gravitate to it? And I'm wondering if it has to do with their attention. So when you read something out loud, you necessarily have to pay attention to what you're reading more than you would maybe if you're not reading out loud. Like some of these people, maybe their mind is wandering and they don't realize it. And that's what they really need to work on. They need to work on reading and like constantly checking in. Are you aware of what you just read? Do you have an opinion on it? Or is your mind following some other random train of thought and you need to rein it back in? You know, it happens, but you got to become aware of that.
You're going to have to learn how to focus on information that is important for whatever reason. To, the analogy I always use in reading comprehension is like, hey, this is a document that arrived in our law office.
Yeah.
Somebody sent this to us like certified mail or whatever, or it's part of the disclosure in the litigation that we're doing, or it's a message from our client. Our job is to read this shit and understand it. It is extremely important that we read it and understand it.
Yeah.
And you using the excuse of, well, I wish I could read it out loud. Sorry, that's just not how the world works. And you're gonna have to learn how to focus one sentence at a time and really understand what's going in. And I don't think that reading out loud is helping you. You can get accommodations, by the way. I mean, before people like send us 1,000 emails telling us, you can get accommodations that allow you to read out loud on the LSAT. File for accommodations, get a doctor to say something about your brain works differently, and if you read out loud it'll help you or whatever. You can get that accommodation if you apply for it, but the default is you cannot read out loud. And later in life there are going to be many situations where you're not going to be able to read out loud. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, this excuse of the week was making me think about another one that could almost be like its own category of excuses. But I hear it all the time, and it's not just on the LSAT. It's just like in life in general. When you're talking with someone and they're like, "I have to X," and it's like, "I have to go drop off this, letter. I have to, whatever it is. I have to respond to my boss by tonight." And it's like so many times when I hear that, I just think to myself, no, you don't. You don't have to do that. You're choosing to do that over something else. And so when it comes to the LSAT and people are like, "Oh, well, I have to stay late at work." And I'm like, "Really? You maybe. But what are the real consequences of that? How many people just say, "Oh, I got to leave. I got something going on." And the world starts to bend around you. Do you want to bend around the world or do you want the world to start to bend around you? And if you keep walking around saying, "Oh, I have to do this and I have to do that," and I think people are literally saying that in their heads, they're deceiving themselves. You're choosing to do that because you think the consequences of not doing that are worse than something else, but are they really? I doubt it.
I think the point of the excuse of the week segment is to encourage people to stop making excuses for not understanding. Just remove those excuses and get to work, which is understanding. let's stop wishing that things could be different, and instead let's focus on the task that's in front of us.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's excuse of the week.
Cool.
You can also get those on our agenda, help@thinkinglsat.com, or find us on social media @thinkinglsat.
So this next little bit here is a peek at our Apple Podcasts
I don't want to
reviews.
waste too much time on it. I just think it's kind of amusing sometimes to look at a few of these.
Yeah.
This first one made me laugh. It says, "My only source of serotonin. If Ben and Nathan ever stop making this podcast, I'm not going to be able to achieve my dreams. They are helping me deal with the stress of deciding to become a criminal defense." And it goes on. I just got the screenshot of like the homepage of Apple Podcasts, and anyway, I just appreciate that. I have no intention of ever stopping this podcast. Do you?
No, but I want to read this inner child one for a half second here. It says the LSAT is ultimately a deeply personal, non-narcotic, psychedelic trip into your inner child that will, if faced correctly, disabuse you of residual childhood fantasies about your specialness. Your guide on that trip is Nathan Fox, who clearly has his own set of unresolved hurts, but
What I
nonetheless
do?
speaks truth to your powerful egocentricity. So do you have
Okay.
unresolved hurts, Nathan? We could
I
look
don't know. I
at
have to
this.
ask my therapist. I guess I do.
I
But
am
I'm
your
working on it.
therapist. This is what I thought
You're my therapist. Oh
you
yeah.
have another therapist? I feel
Sorry, Ben.
betrayed.
I've been cheating on you all this time. Yes, I do have another
Okay.
therapist. I
Oh,
believe strongly in the value of therapy. Um, I don't know if I have unresolved hurts. Maybe I do. I don't know.
okay. I think that's the point, right? You don't know. That's why they come out in
Yeah.
bits and
The whole point of
dribbles.
this exercise is just to beg you guys to please give us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you write a few words,
Nathan, Nathan wants to move on. Oh, that's
yeah,
good. These are
yeah.
funny. Some of these are, and then some of these are. They're generally 5 stars or one, right? That's
Oh,
nice.
well, that's been, yeah. I mean, throughout the history of at least my business, I have had a ton of 5-star reviews and a pretty solid smattering of 1-star reviews. I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks everybody who has given us a review, whether 5 stars or 1 stars on Apple Podcasts. At least you're talking about us, you know.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
We have no advertising budget, so reviews are really one of the best ways, or even better than that, tell a friend about the podcast. We really do appreciate that. All right. We
So
have,
yeah, what
yes.
is this mailbag thing? You put a bunch of emails in here, I guess.
I did. We have a whole shit ton of just random emails. Again, help@thinkinglsat.com if you would like
Okay.
to get on the agenda. I'll just tackle this first one, I guess. Dear Ben and Nathan, I started my LSAT journey with a diagnostic score of 145. Today, I scored a 165 on the official test after just 2 months in the demon. The demon is a score miracle worker. Praise the demon. If you end up reading this, you can use my name. Thank you so much. Kevin. Yesterday was score release day, Ben, and so I'm sure you also got buried in emails from people who killed the LSAT.
Yeah.
Don't know what more we can say about that, but that's a 20-point improvement in 2 months from Kevin, and
2 months.
those stories are not uncommon these days. So
This is where we need that, like, at the end of a med like a medical commercial where it's like these what the symptoms may be and results may not be repeatable.
yeah,
Illegal in the following states.
sure, of course, but our shit fucking works. I mean, I believe in what we do
I did too.
just because of the results, and of course, we can't guarantee that it's going to happen for every single person, but like almost every one of our teachers studied with us and improved by 10 or 15 or 20 points,
Yeah.
and then eventually scored in the 170s. I mean, Eden got her score yesterday. And it's like, yeah, okay, you've been studying with us for 6 months and you ended up with a 99th percentile LSAT score. how many students have we seen that have done this? Hundreds. So it's
I just
like,
want a product that has that disclaimer.
what? Our shit works. Oh, you want the whole drug commercial?
Yeah.
Fast
Potential side effects
talk.
includes
We can make one of those. That'll be a new ending for the
euphoria.
show. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Kevin, and congratulations. That's amazing. You want to take this next one?
Yeah, I'll take this one. This is from Angie. Hi, Ben and Nathan. I won't call myself a non-traditional student because who knows what that even means. Okay.
I agree
At
with
30,
that. So we just started this
I
affinity
don't totally
group.
agree. Like if you're 70, you're out. You're non-traditional.
You have to, dude, don't be mean to Marvin in our classes. I don't know that Marvin's 70, but he's like 60 something. He's the resident old guy in
Wait,
all of our classes.
wait, we have a 6-year-old in class?
Yeah, you don't know Marvin yet?
No, I don't know Marvin.
Oh,
What
look out
what
for him in
what's
one
his
of our.
plan? I don't understand. That's non-traditional.
Yeah, but hey, Ben, surely you would agree that non-traditional is vague, and you
Sure.
could just fucking say what you mean to say, which is you're a little bit older. When so we're starting all these affinity groups now. These are
Okay.
student proposed, student run affinity groups for just subsets of our population. For
Yeah.
example, Austin, thank you, Austin, said, hey, I think it would be cool to have a study group for older LSAT students. And so we've started that group. I facilitate it on Mondays, and the group is amazing. They're like sharing all kinds of resources and whatnot. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And since then, we've had like already 5 other affinity groups pop up. One for moms, one for Latinas. You know, we got like a growing list. By the way, if you're a Demon student and you want to suggest an affinity group that you would like to kind of spearhead, you can email me directly. I'm Nathan at lsatdemon.com, and we'll get that group going for you, because it's for you. It's something that you guys, a place where you guys can get together in a smaller group than the whole giant demon population. Anyway, point of my lengthy story is that they wanted to call it non-traditional LSAT students.
Who? Oh, the older group did.
Yeah, the old
Yeah.
folks wanted to call
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
non-traditional LSAT students. And one, it's a lie anyway, because older people have always gone to law school. Since when do older people not go to law school? Law school has always been open to everybody who's willing to, pay the tuition or
So you're
whatever.
looking at the word traditional as in uh from the beginning, or over
Non-traditional
time.
implies that it's like different and
It's
weird
like new,
to be
right? Yeah.
older, which it's
Yeah.
not. So it's a euphemism, and it's vague, and it's fucking useless. And I'm not saying non-traditional student anymore. I'm saying older LSAT student. I mean,
I
you're a
might
little
say it for
older.
really
Who
old
cares?
students.
What's that?
I might say it for really old students, but okay. So she's
Why? Because
35,
you
which
want
is
to use
definitely
the
not, huh?
for Marvin, you want to use the euphemism because he's so old that you're just like, you don't want to say older.
I would
You
say
want
that's
to say,
non-traditional. I would say, or what is it? I think by non-traditional, there's just saying
hey,
like not fitting
but
the mold at all.
well, okay, but then are Black students non-traditional? I mean, they are a like very small minority historically. They are very underrepresented in law school. Traditionally, like white males went to law school. I
Mm,
don't. It's super vague, dude. It's useless. Just say what it fucking is. You're a little older. That's fine.
oh,
Why
really old.
use why use a meaningless euphemism when you could just say what it is? It goes against every writing principle I've ever heard you say. Okay.
It's very
Anyway,
important. Um, all right. At 35, I'm preparing for a career change, obviously to become a lawyer. I started a side business as a calligrapher in my 20s, and it quickly became a full-time job, having afforded me a steady six figure, would that mean 7 figures? A six-figure
no, she just
income,
means it's not exactly a
including
hundred
100.
thousand. It's
Yeah.
maybe we're looking at more like 160. That's
Okay.
my guess.
Okay. Six-figure plus income and a flexible schedule doing work I generally enjoy. Okay. Angie, I'm confused as to why you're doing a career change here.
My gut reaction was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. You've already won. Absolutely do not. Like, and this is a demon subscriber,
Yep.
and I think she should unsubscribe. I
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'd love to have you, Angie. And if law turns out to be the thing for you, great. But you do very interesting work. It sounds like you're good at it. You're killing it. You're making a ton of money. You have flexible work, and you make 6 figures already. I can't imagine what. What? All right, go ahead.
Oh, look at what she says next. I realize at this time you will call me crazy to leave such a cush gig to pursue law, and I'm ready to hear you tell me not to be a lawyer. Okay, we're already starting.
We just did.
After
Yeah.
first,
Don't do this.
yeah, don't do this. Stop. Thanks for writing in, Angie. It's good. It's nice talking to
Nice
you.
knowing you.
After thinking I'd casually attempt to apply this
Yeah.
March for a fall 2021 start, I came across the Thinking LSAT podcast where you told me that what a terrible idea that would be. Thank you! Exclamation point. I'm now committed to going to law school only if it's free, and I've started studying with the demon. Okay. Your strategies are so glaringly intuitive. I've subsequently tossed all other prep books, unsubscribed from all other LSAT podcasts, and discontinued membership with a different prep company. For some reason, I started feeling like, I'm like, are we a cult? Are we,
Yeah.
are we, yes, disband all connections to normal society
No.
and join the demon
Right,
team.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Disavow all other relationships with friends and family. No, I mean, the Angie's almost done. All she needs to do is also unsubscribe from the Thinking LSAT podcast and the
And
LSAT
the
demon,
demon.
and then she's done because she already has a fucking kick-ass career. What?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
This is actually how we rope people in. You try to push them away and they just want more.
they want
She's
it
gonna
more.
like
I
after
know.
this, she's gonna want it. Okay. Anyways, my first question is about letters of recommendation. Okay. It's always a low priority in my mind. How
Yep.
important are they? Not important. And how important are the authors? Not important.
Only
Okay. So you
important that they
obviously have to,
actually know you. Yeah.
yeah, they have to know you. That's what's important. They can be anybody who knows you well and supervises your work or
Yep.
schooling. Obviously you have to do them. They're important in the sense that they're necessary, but they're not a high priority. I've
Yep.
noticed that most schools ask for letters of recommendation from academic sources and less preferably from former employers. Okay. I don't know. I think that depends on your situation. I have been out of school for 14 years and I have not kept in touch with any professors. Yeah, so use work ones. Additionally, I have not had a traditional employer.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
so
she's a
she's self-employed.
self-employed calligrapher.
Got it. In over 10 years, having been in business for myself nearly all of my professional career, the word traditional was just so loaded for me after our previous conversation. I couldn't even like read it and understand it. Any colleagues, that's in scare quotes, I work with regularly are personal industry friends who cannot attest to my academic ability. They don't have to attest to your academic ability. They just have to attest to your abilities, by the way. I fear these would not be sufficient sources of recommendation, and the only people coming to mind are close personal friends. Nope, you do not want to do that. Do your colleagues in work. I don't see a problem with
Well,
that at all.
and your clients.
Your clients who you work for, they are your
Yeah,
boss.
they pay you. They can fire
Yep.
you. They hired you. They keep hiring you, presumably, because you do good work. Your clients are perfectly appropriate for you. They know you, they know your work. They can testify to your like professional capacity, you know?
Hey, Nathan, I have a question for you. What do
Yeah.
people need a calligrapher? I can't even calligraphy. I can't even say the word. What do they need one of those people for?
Let's say we were going to get giant LSAT demon tattoos on our backs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we would hire a calligrapher to
Yeah, I'm
create the
so
super
jealous of you.
fancy
You can just say
script in
it.
the first place.
Yeah. Okay. It's just so it's to me it's interesting because in this modern world, right? Like Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator, all those things, they have such powerful tools for typography.
Sure, if you want computer generated, if you don't want bespoke, handmade
Bespoke? What does
shit,
bespoke mean?
you can look it up. No, people would hire a calligrapher to, make a fancy sign on for their wedding or something, maybe. I don't know, like, or a greeting board at a
You're struggling.
restaurant
You're
or something.
struggling.
What?
You're struggling to find a reason.
No, it does seem pretty antiquated, but I mean, And
Wait, so bespoke is made for a particular customer or user. So that's if you
right,
want something like that.
that's what
Okay.
I'm
Very
saying. You would
unique.
hire Angie to do your handmade. It's so much classier, Ben. You're going to get out Microsoft Word and just use the
Oh,
calligraphy
please. I
fonts.
wasn't
Everybody's
talking
going to
about
be able to
Word.
tell.
I was talking. Okay, anyways. I am also wondering what you'd say is a hard cutoff date for taking the LSAT to apply this fall for 2022. I plan on take the June and August test. If I end up needing to take it again due to a lower than target score, would you suggest waiting another full cycle to apply or taking the October LSAT for this fall's application? This is interesting because this just came up in my class, and I think you have a bright line rule for this, which is August, right?
I mean, there are always exceptions, right? But the burden is on you to qualify for the exception. August is fine because the score is going to come back in mid September and you get your application in September. That's great.
Yeah.
October is kind of shitty because October, those scores are going to come out at the end of October or beginning of November. And you're by definition applying after other people. Why would you apply after other people? You control the process. You know that it's rolling admissions. There's no reason to rush into law school. There are 100 reasons to go to the best school at the best price, preferably zero. Preferably you get a stipend. And so, you know, if I'm pulling the strings, like if it was my money or if I was just the boss of you, I could just magic wand and just make you do what I wanted you to do. Then
Yeah.
yeah, if you take the October LSAT, just wait till the next cycle starts. They'll be here before you know it. Trust me. It, there's always another one right around the corner. And at age 35, Angie, you're probably old enough to start realizing that you have kind of more time than you think in some ways. I mean, life is short and long both. It's weird. This is a kind of a strange paradox there, but your legal career is going to be either 29 years or 30 years. And it really makes no difference whether it's 29 years or 30 years. But accruing six figures of debt or going to the wrong law school is going to follow you forever. And I just think that people who take the October LSAT and then apply are going to get slightly worse offers on average. They're going to get slightly worse offers than the people who applied at the beginning of the cycle. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I think I agree with that. I think if you have a good enough score to apply in August, but you haven't used up all your test taking opportunity, or not good enough, I should say, if you think you've gotten the best score you could possibly most likely get, not necessarily possibly get, because that may be hard to determine, but you've done very well and you're applying in August, I would still be open and interested in people taking the October LSAT merely for the fact that they probably have the score, the best score they can get, but why not throw the dice again and potentially bump it up? I, I'm saying they're still like applying with that August score and everything.
Yeah, I just, I wonder because I know that some schools will hold off evaluating your application if they see that you're signed up for another LSAT.
Oh, I was under the impression you could tell them, hey, no, just consider my application
But then what's the point of taking the LSAT again?
because you have another shot and you thought you did as
You
well as
didn't
you
get the
could.
benefit of applying early. I mean, or you're either not getting the benefit of that test
No,
or you're not getting the benefit of applying
oh,
early.
no, no, no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I meant the opposite. You can tell them to go ahead and consider it. I thought you could do that.
Right. In which case, that extra LSAT doesn't even do anything for you because they're already
Oh,
evaluating your application.
no, I think you come back with an offer, but the negotiation isn't done by November, right? Like, what if you get a higher score?
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
I
like, the shot
maybe
of
it
getting.
maybe it varies school by school. I mean, I know that when I applied to Hastings, they were very clear that when you apply, we evaluate your application with your scores on record. And that you could possibly just get denied before you even get that new score back.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't do that. Maybe they do look at your record and see you're taking the test again, and then they would at least hold off on making a decision. But that's not what they told me. at the time. So, I'm
Yeah,
wary.
I'm really talking about someone who has a score that's good enough. I'm just thinking, well, why not throw the dice again? Like it's just
Anne
like
has
it's
always
too.
been very clear that you shouldn't apply until you have your best LSAT score.
Yeah.
She said that 100 times. So,
Well, okay, cool.
well, I mean, hey, default presumption, wait another cycle. It never hurts you. You might have
And
reasons
exhaust,
where,
and that gives you time to exhaust your 5 attempts, right?
yeah, and make sure that you're really showing up looking
They,
like a baller.
you really do have the best possible score you could get.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're wasting money on applications, wasting time on applications. How many students do we have who applied one cycle and then end up having to like retake and reapply and all that stuff? It's like, well, why didn't you just get your ducks in a row in the first place?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Angie. Really, Angie, you have an amazing career already. Flexible work, doing something that you love, making six figures. Most lawyers don't make six figures. Most lawyers also hate their job. She knew what we were going to tell her before she wrote in. All right. Next email says, hope y'all are doing well. I went through high school, undergrad, averaging about 3.2 or 3.3 or so. After, I found out I have two learning disabilities. It has gotten a bit worse over time, which is why I found out about it later rather than sooner. That sucks. One is some form of dyslexia. Sometimes I see numbers and letters upside down. Sometimes when I am reading, I also do not see words that are on the page, and words that are not on the page, I somehow see. It's not very intense, but it just takes me a little bit longer reading materials because I have to check to see if I read it right. This happens sometimes. It's not a most of the time thing. I forgot the name of the second learning disability I have. It has some kind, oh, sorry, it was some kind of executive function disorder. It takes me a little longer to analyze information. I always wonder what my GPA would have been had I known about these learning disabilities. Question: how are law schools with people with learning disabilities? Do they get the same materials as other people? Different materials? Are there certain programs? I've seen there is help for people like that in high school, and even my undergraduate has it. I'm wondering how it is in post-grad studies. This is from Anonymous. I, I had a couple comments. First was when you said, I forgot the name of the second learning disability I have. It is some kind of executive function disorder. I really think you got to take responsibility for that. Like a doctor has told you you have this thing and now you've like forgotten the name of it. Some
You're
type of
definitely
executive.
not going to get accommodations with that mindset. What is it you have a problem with again? Well, I don't know the name
Well,
exactly. It's difficult.
Anonymous is going to get a letter. I mean, Anonymous, you should go get the letter from your doctor that spells these things out. You can get either time and a half or double time on the LSAT. Be careful about double time. I feel like double time is too much time. It seems like double time kind of fucks people up sometimes. Time and a half should be plenty. And if you apply for time and a half, start practicing with time and a half, I think you'll see that your LSAT score improves immediately. The law schools do not know that you got accommodations. Be very careful not to tip your hand when you're applying. Don't write about learning disabilities in your personal statement because they're going to think, oh, this person got accommodated on the LSAT.
Sure.
Um, but I mean, Ben, if someone had told you that if you found out like the reason why you can't read words properly, is because you have some sort of
Wait, what?
executive, if someone told you that you have an executive function disorder,
Yeah.
wouldn't you immediately become like an expert on that executive function disorder?
Presumably, if it's affecting your life in some way, it sounds like Anonymous is worried that it does, right?
Well,
So,
yeah, and if it's not a thing, then go ahead and ignore it. But
yep.
if this thing is real and you're writing to us about it, so you seem to think that it's real, well, It's like you're worrying about what kinds of shit you're going to get from your law school, but you're not taking responsibility for your own condition, which, I mean, we will tell you. I mean, anyway, I don't want to beat you up too bad about that, because I appreciate that you've written into the show, but like, get more specific about that, learn about that. I'm sure that there are kind of tricks and workarounds and resources out there on the internet, probably endless resources for people who have these disorders or differences, whatever you want to call them. And you do need to like help yourself first. um, as far as what happens in law school for people with learning disabilities, do you have any comments about that?
I don't know the details, but I'm sure that they do provide some accommodations. Yeah.
I mean, my own law school experience, which now mercifully is a decade behind me, um, I, they definitely did accommodate students. So you tell them that you have these learning disabilities, and they probably will give you. I remember that there were people in my cohort who had a separate room to take their tests. People had extra time to take their tests. There were resources on campus for people who needed like extra tutoring or extra whatever. There were various programs that you could participate in. There's like an academic resources center, I'm sure, on every law school campus that you can go get extra help. But I think step one for all of that is knowing exactly what your issues are and being a good advocate. Lawyers are advocates. You need to advocate for yourself by learning. Step one is to learn as much as you can about these disorders so that you can then go into these, resource centers and be very clear about what your issues are and kind of help them help you, giving you the right resources for your condition.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're still going to be studying the same shit. You're going to be taking the same exams. You're going to be taking the same bar exam. You might have extra time and some extra study resources, but otherwise it's going to be, it's not like there's a separate JD for dyslexics.
Yeah.
Anything more there?
Nope. Good luck.
Okay. Thanks for writing in. Take the next one.
Yeah. Scott. Hi. Not sure what insight you can give, but here goes, colon. Here goes. All right. My application went in pretty late. It was unavoidable.
Bullshit.
Really? Really? It was unavoidable, and there's nothing we can do about that now.
I agree with that part. It happened. So
Oh, well, that's true. It was
moving
submitted
forward,
late. We can't
it's a
change
sunk
that, right?
cost. Yeah. Right. I
I've been
disagree
getting
that it was unavoidable, but there's nothing we could do about it now. Yeah, you're right.
like there's nothing we can do about the fact that it was submitted late, but we can do a lot about what we want to do now.
Yeah,
You
totally.
always
Yes.
have a million choices ahead of you. I've been
Yes.
getting waitlisted everywhere from Penn to George Washington, and I'm still waiting on 12 more. Is the fact that I'm getting waitlisted even as late as this, and by such a wide spectrum of schools, a sign that I have a good chance during the next cycle and that the lateness killed me? Or is it safe to assume that I'd have gotten similar results if I had applied on time? Uh, you almost certainly would have gotten better results, especially if you wait and apply next cycle, which will probably be less competitive than this cycle. You might get even better results. Anyways, beyond that, University of Michigan waitlisted specifically says they've offered deferred admissions to waitlisted students who have asked for it. Have you heard of that before?
No, that's a new one on me. Apparently, Michigan this year. I mean, it's crafty. See, these schools, especially the top schools, are like pretty savvy. They're very crafty about the way they play this game. And
Yeah.
so they know that this is an ultra competitive cycle, and they're all admitting like better classes this year than they've ever admitted before, because they just have such a
So this
crazy
is a
high
way
amount.
to capture the people who didn't make it in
Yeah.
but are traditionally
They're
competitive.
it's such a competitive year that they're telling people on their wait list, we can't admit you right now because it's too damn competitive, but we'll actually guarantee you a spot for next year.
Well, especially if that person's now going to be so excited to be taken off that wait list that they're going to pay
Yeah, which
full
continue reading
price.
Scott's email.
Okay. Um, where did it go? This long paragraph. Okay. Is that something you've heard of people doing anywhere else? We just answered that. Is it a reasonable thing to shoot for? I'm basically
Depends.
guaranteed. Wait, what?
It depends. I mean,
Yeah. What are they offering?
yeah,
I'm basically guaranteed to start next year now, which I can live with, but I'm not sure what my prospects are based on current results.
right. That's because you
Consequent,
applied late. You
yeah,
have no idea what your prospects are because you applied late. You also applied during the most competitive cycle ever,
late.
late. So you're not going to know what your actual prospects are unless you reapply next cycle.
Yeah. Consequently, Scott, one piece of advice, please use more paragraph breaks. Consequently, I'm unsure whether I should attempt and take a deferral at the best school I can, which would be binding. It would be binding. Or just start over next year and shoot for my top choices again. I'm a super splitter, not just a splitter, a super splitter. A 178 and a 3.15 from Columbia with 20 years of solid career and good recommendation letters. I'd assumed I'd mostly just get either accepted or rejected, but now I'm guessing I can count on at least 10 to 15 wait lists. I've already got 5 so far, and I don't know what that means or what to make of it. Assume scholarships are not an issue. This is just about admission. Okay, so it sounds like Scott is saying that he has money and he doesn't care about the going for free. Is that what?
Yeah, but I'd be shocked. It's a 178, a 3.15, which is not a great GPA, but it is from a great school. 20-year career. I think that this is a very attractive candidate for most schools. It's
Yeah,
just a super fucking competitive cycle.
yeah. You're basically locking yourself in to pay full freight at the University of Michigan. I mean, I know you don't care about money, but um, where else could you go?
University of Michigan gives full ride scholarships plus $10,000 a year stipends sometimes.
I just can't imagine. Like, are you really that like wealthy too that
How rich are you?
making $200,000 isn't like something to be mildly happy about?
Yeah, 200 grand. It's a down payment on $1 million house. Or it's buy a house in Michigan outright. I mean, I I don't I I'd be shocked if Scott applied again at the beginning of the next cycle. I'd be shocked if he doesn't get better offers. I can't imagine just being like, okay, yeah, all right, I'll settle for Michigan at full price.
I mean, yeah, especially if you're going to apply early. Um, Michigan is willing to give you a seat now. That means that they know
Yeah, like
that
they're going to look at
they're
your
going to say
application
yes
next
later.
cycle and be like, no, for the same class.
Highly
It
unlikely.
it seems like a smart move by Michigan to try to just kind of sucker lazy people or people who aren't really they've created this false scarcity around law school admissions, and they just do such a great job of like perpetuating this myth that it's such an honor to get granted admission to Michigan and this might be your one and only one shot at Michigan. Bullshit. If you apply again to all of the top 14 and whatever schools you applied to, I mean, the reason why you're getting waitlisted is because this is an ultra competitive cycle and you applied late.
And you have a
If
3.15.
and
Yeah.
you don't have very good grades, but I'd be I'd be shocked if you applied again and like what Michigan's going to deny you next year. I just can't imagine.
Yeah. And apparently you're interested in several schools. So let's just open it up for all of them, not just have one choice.
Yeah, I have a feeling that if Scott applies on September 1st for the next cycle, he might be emailing us back like on September 30th with, hey, I've already gotten 5 different offers from, I mean, that's what we saw last fall. Like there was
Yeah.
a feeding frenzy at the beginning of the cycle.
Yeah.
So
And you
I'd roll
might
the dice if I
save
were you,
yourself
Scott.
some money, Scott, even for rich people.
It's
Okay.
just a down payment on $1 million house, Scott. I mean, it's it's probably worth it. Hey, just a little quick side note, but send us your favorite moments from the show, will you? To help us grow on social media, also to help us create episode 300. If you could email help@thinkinglsat.com or find us on social @thinkinglsat and just send us a timestamp and an episode number and a topic for a moment that you thought was funny or useful, that would help us out a lot. Again, help@thinkinglsat.com or social @thinkinglsat. Next one, is it me? Hi guys, I'm a crazy
Mm-hmm.
person and thought I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to do public service, like a public defender or child advocate. I had been teetering on the idea for a while and decided to go all in and apply for the fall 22 cycle. So I signed up for the June LSAT Flex and started studying with the demon. I had a sobering conversation with one of the demon tutors and realized that I am fucking 20 years old and was rushing into this way too fast, LOL. Written like a 20-year-old. Then I had an epiphany that what I wanted to do with my life could
Oh
also
my
be
God, an
accomplished.
epiphany. Sorry, go ahead.
An epiphany that what I wanted to do with my life could also be accomplished by becoming a social worker. So I'm probably about to change my undergrad degree for the 3rd time! Exclamation point. So fun. But I've sunk over $600 into this endeavor, so I was wondering if it would be possible for me to get a refund from LSAC since I signed up so early. I've seen some people online say that a strongly worded email can get the job done, and I was wondering if y'all had ever heard of this happening. Thanks, and I'll miss the parasocial relationship I formed with you guys through the podcast. And that's from O. Ben, I
That's
helpfully
another word
looked
I
up
don't
the
know.
definition of parasocial. It's right there for you. You want to read it?
Yeah, wait, it's right there for me.
It's right underneath. Just keep
Oh,
going.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Parasocial interaction refers to a kind of psychological relationship experienced by an audience in their mediated encounters with performers in the mass media, particularly on television.
And podcasts.
Viewers, yeah, viewers or listeners come to consider media personalities as friends, despite having limited interactions with them. Or
Ben,
not.
do you have any parasocial relationships? Do you have any friends in
Oh
the? I
yeah, I
have
do.
so many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Well, one is The Rock. He motivates me to work out.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I thought you were going to say Sam Harris. I'm so glad you pulled The Rock instead of Sam Harris. That's fantastic. Nothing against Sam Harris, but I mean,
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Rock is just so much cooler. Amazing. That's
Uh,
fantastic.
so yeah, will LSAT give you a refund? I don't know. I guess you just got to ask them. It seems like they've been more friendly in the last couple of years than they were before. So I think you have a shot. I don't know.
I,
Um,
I think, especially if you call multiple times,
yeah.
I would
Oh,
like
you might get like a
call
different person.
and
Yeah.
cry and yell, and just like tell them how ridiculous you think it is. And, don't be like, I don't know, I wouldn't be like a dick about it, but I would just, I think I would try multiple times and do like a plea for sympathy and this money really means everything to me. And I signed up foolishly. I have no intention of ever taking the LSAT. And, I mean, it's for the fucking June LSAT, Ben.
Yeah.
It's only March right now.
Yeah.
Like, they make you sign up 6 weeks in advance and they give you your score 3 weeks later. I don't know why that's relevant, but she signed up so far in advance
But
and
we're
now
mad
has
about that too,
decided
by the way. So
she's decided not to go to law school. I think if you kick and scream and cry and beg, I would think that you might be able to get a refund out of them.
hey, yeah, I think so too. And I guess that's why you were writing in O. But what do you think about this whole thing of changing your undergrad degree for the 3rd time? my reaction is like, just get the degree. Like, I don't, do you need a particular degree? I know wants to become a social worker, but that could very well change again. I would just rather wrap it up, like get that degree and go out and get a job, get experience, maybe a social working job.
Well, I mean, changing her major doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to take more time for her to finish her degree.
Not necessarily.
So
That's true. So if it doesn't matter, although I will say that when I changed to econ, that helped me a lot actually, because it didn't require a lot to finish. So it made it easier to graduate, and I ended up graduating a semester early.
yeah, you have to try different things in life. I imagine if she wants to be a social worker, she probably needs the degree, and if social
In
work
that
seems
particular
to be the
field.
thing that she
Yeah.
wants to do, then she probably has to get some sort of a certification in that direction. So I'm not going to tell her not to change her major. I'm glad she's decided not to go to law school. I mean, we're perfectly happy talking people out of it. Hey, one more quick one, all right? And then we got to wrap it up.
Sure.
By the way, thank you, O, for writing in and teaching us about parasocial relationships.
You got to go fast.
Yep, read it.
Just listen to a recent podcast where you mentioned Georgetown asking for GRE applicants to apply. Seems pretty predatory. I am waitlisted at Georgetown, and FYI, during a Zoom meeting, the dean said that they broke the all-time high record for applications at any law school with 14,000 applicants so far. The previous record was 12,500 in 2004. They said they are very behind already. They definitely don't need more applicants. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
this
they're
is
doing what
a
they can to
little
get the
bit.
best of the best.
Yeah, former student a while back who still interacts with the show. I really love this little bit of intel,
Sure.
which you can send, by the way, to help@thinkinglsat.com or find us on social at thinkinglsat. But yeah, there Georgetown is like sending out all this spam about apply now for 2021 admission. This fall, send in your GRE applicant. You can apply with a GRE score and you could start this fall. And our hypothesis was they're doing it for rankings. They might cherry pick one or two of these people who have a perfect GRE score, but they're more likely going to deny everybody. And this little fact seems to support that conclusion, because they've got 1,500 more applications this year than they've ever had before, which indicates that your chances of applying super late with a GRE score, not an LSAT score, it just seems pretty far-fetched that they're actually looking for people to be in the class starting this fall, and they're much more likely just looking to boost their applications numbers so that they can climb up into the top 14 and or into the top 10. I'm sure Georgetown would kill to be in the top 10, right? And
Well,
that's pretty much what's going on.
Yeah, and especially if they didn't waive the application fee in that email. I can't remember if they did or not, but that's not a source of revenue to be ignored, right? $75 a pop. It's like, and you're not going to do anything with them.
And anyway, when we deny you, it just makes us look better in the eyes of U.S. News and World Report.
Yep.
So yes, please apply so we can deny you.
Pay us to look better.
Yep. All right, let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Be LSAT famous. Get on an upcoming show by emailing help@thinkinglsat.com. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, email help@lsatdemon.com. That was episode 288 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.